Oh, but they need to know also, thank you. Today's a little spontaneous. If anyone needs to be more comfortable, there's chairs and there's more cushions, just to let you know. We're going to watch a 15-minute video and then I'll do a talk. Well, that helps. I forgot how helpful the gong is. Thank you, everyone. Just get comfy. He's still checking. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming this morning. My name is Cathy Lhamo, or just Cathy. Today, I had asked Lama Cathy, normally I teach workshops, but she asked if I would teach today, and I'm very specific what I like to usually teach on. So I thought, the elephant in the room is all these incredible new statues we have. And Lama Cathy so kindly spoke regarding the middle statue, Dorje Chung, last weekend. So I thought I would start teaching a series. I'm going to teach 3 series of classes on 2 of the different statues that are part of our main lineage. But before we do that today, we're going to chant a prayer really quickly 3 times. And after that, we're going to watch a video from Rubin Museum on how the statues, this type of statue is made. It's a lost wax technique made by certain families in Nepal still. And if you notice, the 3 new statues we got, which are the 3 very large ones, there's 1 on either side and then the center one, they were all made by the same family in the same foundry. So there was very similar characteristics because of the artisans. And so, and it's probably over 1,000-year-old families that have lived in Nepal, that have worked with the Tibetans over the hundreds of years to make all the statuaries that were throughout all of Tibet, which now are gone, a great deal of them. So now they're in India, Nepal, and around the world as here. So first we're going to do the refuge prayer. You can put your hands in prayer if you want. It's kind of hard when you're holding one hand, but I do a half prayer. So, and I'm going to hum a note, and then you can sing with me. Om Sanjay Chodan Sorki Chonam La Chanchu Bardu Dani Jatsuchi Dagi Gensok Ki Pesonam Ki Drola Penchir Sanjay Drubar Shok. We do it 2 more times. Sanjay Chodan Soki Jonam La Janchu Bardu Dani Kyatsuchi Dagi Jinsok Ki Pesonam Ki Drola Penchir Sanjay Drubar Shok. And now let's read this one in English. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the assembly most excellent, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I achieve enlightenment for the sake of all beings. So whenever you go to a Buddhist teaching normally, I can put this down so I'm not playing with it. Whenever you go to a Buddhist teaching, it's very normal to first say a prayer of aspiration. And then while you're in the class, you try and, if you fall asleep, you fall asleep. Or if you need to go to the restroom or you're really hungry and you need to go downstairs, that's fine. But in the old schools, in the old days, we did this prayer, and then we would immediately then make the aspiration while we were sitting there taking our notes or whatever. At the very end, we dedicate all the good merit of whatever you've done and whoever has ever been involved in this situation. So today we're going to offer the merit for whoever put this wonderful video together. This is the Rubin Museum. It was in New York City. Has anyone been there? Beautiful, beautiful place. And unfortunately, I don't know why, but now that it's just a traveling museum, which is maybe very beneficial in some ways. In New York, real estate's very expensive, so I could understand why. And they're very much into the history of Tibetan crafts. So somebody made this quite a while ago when they went to Nepal, and I'm just gonna sit in a chair. I'm not gonna say anything while we watch this for about 14, 15 minutes. Thank you. And if you need to go to the restroom or whatever, feel free, right outside the door. My glasses, where are my glasses?
Can you
See?
Love me, I am.
Look at this. Wax, you're gonna.
You wax. पानी निकाले से बड़ो प्रश्न आले के होला होला
only part was the text screen that the terror and the but the Sandro राखेको हुन्छ अनि चु social.
Huh? केतापट्टि डाक केतापट्टि
नलिराख्नु चुकुटचुकुटे चल्ला यो चाहिँ नि चागा ल म अब यसमा पनि जान्छ
अनि अफिसको विश्वासीले मान्छे
पेपर भयो
यो इलेक्ट्रोफिटिङ
यतिको सुनले चाहिँ नि भोल चाहिँ मलाई गएको सेक्ला
बस्यो त्यसलाई निराटेर त्यो हिमाली निरा
5 3 5 2 7 सब 8
खानाले कति लागि पऱ्यो
अब यो घरमा गऱ्यो भने त्यही मैले
फ्यामिलीहरूसँग टक्क बसेर
फ्यामिली नै सबै यो काम गर्ने सबै फ्यामिली नै
बास्ना
चल्दैन फेसबुक चल्दैन गुगल चल्दैन सधैँ डाइरिया म सुरु भनेको सोधेको छु
प्रोग्रामलाई एक दिन लाग्दो रहेछ
5th मा चाहिँ नि यही बेटा 15 तारिखमा छोया नि गाह्रो यो
ड्रिलमा कति नम्बर चाल्छ भनेर पहिले थाहा
ठ्याक्कैसँग मिलेन टेन सताल
Testing. Working? Great. So for the people that are online, I just said that this, thank you for watching, by the way, everyone, and for my patience. I love to know how things are made. And the statue they made was a version of green Tara. And we have white Taras and green Tara. And green Tara is always known because her foot's sticking out just a little bit more. I wanted to talk about one more thing with this. We can put this away now if we want. Thank you so much, Don, for doing all this. I wasn't sure if this would work today, so I was so happy. I loved how we had all the background noise of Nepal and Kathmandu. I'll just leave it here. Thank you. So they do exactly the same process for the tiny statues. Not tiny solid ones, but tiny hollow ones. You would know if particularly, let me ask, how many people have small statues at their house that are probably this big or bigger? So they're often that. If they're hollow inside, you have a teacher consecrate them after you buy them. Or if you bought them from somewhere else. I just bought a used medicine Buddha that he was just so beautiful, I couldn't resist his face, but his body had some chips on it in the gold. So the gold from the neck down is different than the gold on the face. On the face is done by that woman that was sitting there in her living room or wherever, applying gold leaf. The gold on the body is a mixture of mercury and gold. I was freaking out when they were just touching the mercury with their bare hands. And she told me that I can't really fix mine unless I take it to Nepal because it's illegal in this country. Because what happens is when it looked like the statue was suddenly silver, it was really the mercury mixed with the gold. And then it's fired and the mercury dissipates through fumes, through toxic fumes. That's why it was done outdoors. And then this beautiful shiny gold surface that doesn't tarnish. So that's the great advantage of that. So I hope that it made some sense, and you could always go on YouTube and look up more things. So thank you for putting up with me and my curiosity. I lived in Nepal for a long time, and back in the 80s and 90s, and it wasn't easy to go to a foundry. It was kind of a family secret. So I was really happy to see. I saw a lot of videos on different Buddhas, but not made in Nepal until I found this one. And I love Rubin museums, so they're pretty really high quality things they put out, and of course they're into art history. So today, I didn't realize the class was going to be so short now, but I thought I would talk a little bit more about what's behind me. So we have the very large, beautiful statue that Lama Cathy spoke on last weekend, who is Vajradhara. He is considered a Buddha, but he's different from our historical Shakyamuni Buddha, who is seated with either in different hand gestures, usually with his hand down, earth witness mudra. So this Buddha is considered is a primordial Buddha, and particularly used as someone who we revere dearly in the Karma Kagyu lineage. So in each lineage, in the Galupas, the Dalai Lama's lineage, when they have a big lineage tree of all the different lineage masters, those who kept everything going throughout the centuries, they have a different Buddha. They don't actually have a Buddha, they have Tsongkhapa, I believe. But we have Vajradhara, so ours is this big blue Buddha. So normally he's blue, and so I thought I would just show you, I forgot, my husband was an art historian. He hasn't done stuff in years, but I always forget we have a lot of great books at home. So this is what he would look like as a painting. So he's blue, he's the color of the deepest sky, because it's that type of awareness of your mind that has no beginning or end. So he's very symbolic. So today I thought I would speak, I guess briefly, on, if you go outside the door before the elevator on the right is this gigantic painting, it's called a tanka, and you'd have to move a few of the little pieces of ribbons and things aside, but at the very top, it's our whole lineage, you might say. And at the very top on one side is Tilopa. So this is his iconography. How do I know it's Tilopa? He always is usually holding a fish. And it's not because he's from Benares and the Bay of Bengal, and it symbolizes other things that we'll talk about in a minute. And if I have time, I'm going to speak on also Naropa, who was his student. He was the teacher of Marpa. So usually when you look at a tanka, you see a big blue Buddha, a lineage tanka, a blue Vajradhara in the middle. And way up high, you'll see someone dressed in white or white skin and white clothing on the left side, and on the right, they're kind of mirroring each other. And they're white because they're yogis from India. And they live in the charnel grounds, the cremation grounds. So they wear ash on their body to protect themselves from sun and as a gesture of impermanence. So that's why they're very white. So that's how you always can tell. And the rest of them are usually look like monastics. But these were not monks. So I think I've been really studying up on the lineage. I forgot how amazing the stories are about them. And these are our major grandfather, great-great-great-great-grandfathers. And so Tilopa, the one holding the fish, who's on this side, on the top. I'm trying to think, how can I describe it? So we have 6 major lineage holders here, besides Dorje Chang. On the top left, there's 2 columns over here and 2 on the right. On the top left side is a slightly smaller one, is Tilopa, and the top, oh no, I got it wrong. 1 column each. The big statues. The very top one is Tilopa, and Naropa is on this side on the top. And then after Naropa, his student was Marpa, who's the one with the blue head in the middle, coming down to Milarepa, who was the yogi, then to Gampopa, who was Milarepa's student, and then the very first Karmapa, who is seated there with the black hat. So this is what I'll be talking on over the next, whenever I get here to talk. But today, I thought I would just briefly go over their lives. They were very different from all the other lives of the teachers because, sorry, it's so fun getting in your 70s. I love cushions, but they do move. So let's talk about timeline. First of all, I do want to mention that what I'm going to talk about today is called the hagiography, if you're familiar with that. It's a spiritual biography. So they're different than a normal biography that would read what they wore, who they were married to, what they did for fun. That's not what this is going to be about. These are going to talk, we're going to talk about maybe how their family in the beginning, and then what molded them to become these spiritual people that they are today, that are still known. They were around year 1000, so it's been kind of a long time. We're not talking, a few hundred years ago. So these are really ancient teachers, and they didn't have cars to get around to see all their teachers and go for this or that. It was a very, very different time. So Tilopa, the one who I said is holding the fish, and I'm just going to say it right now, that has many symbolisms, particularly to symbolize how many students he would have, an innumerable amount of students, which obviously a lot of us are still students of this lineage, so it's pretty ancient by now. It's over 1,000 years old. He grew up in Benares area of India, well, now in ancient India, I should say, near the Bay of Bengal. He came from a very sweet family. They always wanted a boy, so they went to all these teachers to get, have prayers said. And he was born much later in their life. And there's, as with all spiritual, they're called hagiographies or namtar in Tibetan. So with all the ancient stories, there's always different versions. One, he became a king, but I like the other version where he took care of water buffaloes as a kid, because that's what you see all over India. Everyone's taking care of water buffaloes. And while he was still very young, a very old hag came and appeared to his mother saying that he needs to have a very spiritual life and you need to take care of him. You cannot be attached to him because he's going to travel everywhere and leave you. But first, you need to set down a foundation for his practice. So he would be out there watching the water buffaloes, which I saw all over India. It was marvelous to see the kids riding on them, standing on them, being with them day and night. Yet they often had books with them, so he was the same. He was studying the scriptures of the teachings of the Buddha. Later on, he went to a monastery and was very accomplished, but had a vision again of this woman. They're called dakinis. They're kind of not really of this earth. We might call them almost like angels or visions. And she said, it's time for you to move on, to get out of the bounds of being a monk and being worried about this and that. You need to free your mind. And she said, you're to travel all over India. And so he studied with 100 teachers. And it said the essence of those teachings, he was so accomplished that what we have today in our lineage is from those times when he gathered that information. So she also gave him an unusual piece of information. She said, look like a madman so nobody bothers you. So it was not unusual, and even today, if you go to India, you see the sadhus, where they smear their body with ash, and well, you see the ones that are kind of commercial, and then you see the ones out in the wild that are true yogis that live in caves. And my husband and I were very lucky. We met a Tibetan one that lived in Milarepa's cave when I was there in 1989. And I remember I asked, well, where do you go from here? Because he was getting ready to move to his next cave. And they had a whole circuit. So he was gathering food for the group of people that would be coming next. And he spent his days meditating in the wild, just living in the wild. So this went on for a very long time. He had over 100 teachers he saw. And then eventually this dakini, they call her an old hag, because sometimes they're very gnarly looking and kind of scary. And she said to him, okay, you've done that. Now I want you to meet your true teacher. And so he had visions of Dorje Chang in the form of Chakrasamvara, and also in this form, the big statue in back of me. And so it's called the direct lineage. He received his teachings not from a human, but from more of a deity. And he meditated for 12 years in different places all over that area. And then his teachers said, no, now's the time you need to shift your gears. So now this is where the madman really comes in. Now you're to go to the riverside and pound sesame seeds for 12 years. You make oil. It's a very low caste job. Only the lowly of the lowly did this type of work because they thought he had too much pride. So he went there, and his night job was he was the pimp for a prostitute. There was a large brothel on the riverside there. And so he protected her, and I have no idea what all that went on. So that was his life for about 12 more years. And then he became fully enlightened, and he moved on. I think he even blessed her and the whole village as he was flying in the sky. You know, these are the really old, wild stories. And then he went to the land of Dakinis in Udayana, where Guru Rinpoche had been, and he had different practices he learned there and different tests. And then he went back at the end, just living a very simple life. And then he met his student Naropa. So it's a timeline. Oh, we have a few minutes. So his student, he had many students. At first he was told don't have any students for a while. So that's when he did all the meditation. But then when he became fully awakened of his true nature, which is called Mahamudra, which is a practice that we do so many of these practices that he taught, that he accomplished. He also created the 6 yogas of Tilopa that became the 6 yogas of Naropa, which Lhamo Cathy did that practice in her retreat. She did the Chakrasamvara practice that he had visions of and that he organized to become, and he learned all the visualizations for the practice. So it's pretty strange sometimes to think that was year 1000, 1010, 20, and now we're at 2025, and we're still doing these practices. It's pretty astounding. So his most famous student was Naropa. he's on the other side, just holding a bowl. He's also white, and both of them have a strap around their body. It's a yogic strap that they still use in retreat to this day when you do certain yogas. So that always symbolizes that he was a yogi. And it's particularly because he's very white with smeared ash. And often in the pictures and the paintings, and I'll try and bring more the next time, they'll show the root guru in a corner. They might show their other students. And his student was kind of his opposite. He came from royalty. Naropa came from great royalty in the Kashmir region of India, which is still northern India. And from like very, very young age, it was predicted. Often there's soothsayers that come around when you're born, like when the Buddha was born, Shakyamuni Buddha, who predicts what your life is going to look like. And he said that this is going to be a very great yogi, a very great teacher. And he's very brilliant. And he was all of that. But he had a lot of pride. He came from a lot of wealth. He had no hardships in his entire life. Everywhere he went, he was revered, everywhere. He studied at the famous Nalanda University. And eventually, remember that the hag, the old lady that shows up, the Dakini, well, she shows up for him one night in his room at the monastery, and he was upset because a woman was in his room. And she said, I want to know, what are you studying? And he said, the Prajnaparamita, the Heart Sutra. And she said, do you understand the words? And he said, yes. And so she started dancing, you know. She was probably wearing bone ornaments, clicking away, and bells. And then she said, do you know the meaning? And he thought, well, if I say yes, then I'll make her happy. So he said yes. And she started weeping. And she said, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know anything. You're to get out of this monastery, and I want you to go. And then she gave him instructions to find Tilopa, which took a very long time. Supposedly Tilopa was there all along, but Naropa had so much pride. They say he had 12 minor hardships. So walking through the jungle, he would come across a leper. And having lived in India, they can be a little scary, but I would think back then it was even scarier. And she was laying right across the pathway, and she was asking for help. And all he does is jump over her and say, do you know where Tilopa is? Not, oh, you poor thing. And so she disappeared instantly. And he's like, uh-oh, I blew that one. And so she sang a song basically saying, not until you give up your pride and your fear of this and that will you ever find your guru. And he kept having all these appearances, and they kept getting gorier and gorier. One was a dog that was very angry and full of all kinds of sores and very hungry. And he was revived, just couldn't stand it. So he jumped over that and then turned around and said, where's Tilopa? And then he just disappeared and sang the song. There was a song set in the airwaves, you know, you blew it again. You're not seeing your teacher because you have so much pride and so much fear of things. So eventually he was in the plains of India, because he went all over India looking for him. And they say there was this very funny looking man that came in the monastery. It was a monastery he was hanging out in. And he had live fish, and he was killing them to make dinner. And this is a vegetarian community, and they were just all in an uproar. And he came over to, and of course this is Tilopa in person. And so Naropa went over to him and said, what are you doing? And he stopped killing the fish and then just said a mantra, and then they all swam away. And then he fell to the floor and said, are you Tilopa? And he said, yes. He said, where have you been? And he said, I've been with you the entire time. You just had too much pride, too much fear of things. So he studied, and those were his minor, they were really pretty hard, some of the hardships he had, the minor challenges. And then he had 12 major with him. And from that point on, Tilopa never hardly spoke to him. He only used gestures and symbols. And then after many years, he was still a very devout practitioner. He became very accomplished especially in the 6 yogas, which are named after him today, the 6 yogas of Naropa. And by the way, Naropa's sister is Nguma, who, if any of you know of Kala Rinpoche, Kala Rinpoche does the 6 yogas of Nguma of the Karma Kagyu lineage. So they were brother and sister. So I forgot to go back. So then, over time, Tilopa, the way he died was he didn't leave a body behind. He just went into the ether and left that way. Naropa died at 85 and had, for many years, was told not to have any students. And then suddenly it was time for him to teach. And he had very many famous students, including Marpa, who was from Tibet. He actually went all the way from Tibet, it took years to go all the way into India to find Naropa. And that will be the next story. So those are just some of the highlights of those times. So the whole point of learning these stories is kind of to inspire us to practice, because almost always they're about how dedicated they were to practice, how no matter what the hardship, they just slowly worked through it, or they didn't work through it and they failed many times, like we do. So I think it's very inspiring to learn the old stories. And there's many great books out there by Trungpa Rinpoche. Is one of my favorite. And also, if you're ever interested in a lot more information like this, Lama Adam and Lama Cathy are doing a special program based on the teachings of Ken Holmes from Scotland, from Sammy Scotland, where each month there's like 50 pages where he goes through ancient India and ancient India Buddhism, and then all the way through to where we are in Vajrayana now. And it's a very extensive program, and it's very little money, and you get a great handouts. You get a 50. So I learned a lot from Ken Holmes because he did a wonderful compilation of so many different teachers who taught on these life stories. So are there any questions? I know it sounds fantastic. Maybe not. Well, if there aren't, that's okay, go ahead. Oh, can you walk over to the mic? Thank you. I forgot.
Your guidance and teaching on this. So is Tilopa the founder of our lineage then?
I would say it's Dorje Chang.
Dorje Chang.
His teacher.
Who wasn't in a human body, whom we
Right,
saw.
he is a Buddha, yeah.
Who is
yeah.
a manifestation of Vajradhara?
I guess in some ways you could say Tilopa was one of the founding fathers. I guess you could go. Because it's very interesting. First, when you learn the stories, there's Tilopa and his teacher, and then at one point, Trungpa Rinpoche says, well, they're actually the same person. He was always Vajradhara, but he took on a human form to be an example.
Oh, okay.
So, but that's a good question.
All right.
I'm not a historian, so I don't know.
And the other, is Tilopa one of the founders of some of the other lineages? Or?
So Tilopa and Naropa, because they come from the Indian Karma Kagyu lineage. So later on, after them, everything moved into Tibet, is where most of what we study here. Mm-hmm. But they are really the founders of that. So I know there's different Kagyu lineages. There's several, but I can't remember. I think that happened later with Marpa. This is more of the earlier days.
So like Atisha is later too, and much.
Naropa was Atisha's teacher.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. So Tilopa, Naropa, and then Marpa, Milarepa, and then who's the gentleman?
Gampopa has the red.
Oh, Gampopa.
Gampopa, who wrote all the wonderful. He was really an intellectual. And then the first Dusum Kempa is in the black hat with the first Karmapa.
Okay. Thank you.
They're considered the short lineage.
Okay. Thank you so much.
And I'm glad you asked that, because Tilopa was unique because he got the direct lineage from Dorje Chang or Chakrasambhara, but then he got the indirect lineage from all those other 100 teachers.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
He kind of compiled it. Thank
Thanks
you
so
for
much.
asking.
Just
it's very confusing because I should have gone back to. I feel like we should go back to school. You know, if you were a Tibetan kid or a monk or nun, you would probably learn all of this kind of as your history. We just have a different history system. Any other questions? Were there any questions about the video? Did you guys like it? I should have said a little bit more, but I think it's nice to see it a few times. And it was very hard to find one actually done in Nepal because they're kind of secretive. A lot of their techniques or how they mix this and that is very much a family secret. But the interesting thing is, I was shocked how many videos I saw in Myanmar and other parts of Southeast Asia, because they also have, there's whole different lineages to all the different styles of statuary we have. Very different looking Buddhas. It was really interesting. Yes, hi, so good to see you.
Nice to see you, Lhamo Cathy. Could you kind of go over some of the trials that Naropa, some of his major trials that Naropa went through?
Can I go over what?
Some of the major trials that Naropa went through.
You know, I don't have the major trials. They weren't not written. I've tried to find them and I can't find them. At least it wasn't in any of the material I had. They only talked about the minor trials, but they were, I think, always a test of faith. And he just stayed steady, no matter, like after a while, he caught on to stay really steady. And so I'm sorry I don't have any of those examples.
Oh, no, that's fine.
I looked for them and I couldn't find them.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. The question was about Naropa had so many different trials. He had the minor and the major. But the material I was reading said, well, we don't have a copy of the major. So. But some of the others were really pretty vile. Tilopa would set it up so he would come in and see somebody being murdered, and the person would say, well, if you want to find Tilopa, you're going to have to kill this person. He's like, no, I was raised this and that, no. And so, because he was still working from a relative view, not an ultimate view. So for most of us, it would sound horrible what he was told to do. But from a yogic point of view, it was a little different. But you have to be very careful when you teach that and how you understand it, or it could really bother you, yeah. Any other questions? No. Okay, well, let's just take a moment before we end the class and just quietly dedicate the merit of all of your patients today. Coming down here, giving up your time, and all of your kindness. Offer that up for those that do not have that opportunity. And also because we're learning about the great Mahasiddhas, the great yogis of the past. May their wisdom spread, continue to spread. And now we can chant the prayer. I think you have it. Is it Sonam? Is that the one on the back? I don't have a copy, so. I have a copy. Sonam di tam che sepani do ne pedranam bam jene yega na chi bala trupai si pe sole jowa sho jampa pavo chita kyen badan kuntu sampo deyan de shinde Deda kungi jesu da lochin yewa dida tamjera tungo. And in English, by this merit may all attain omniscience, may it defeat the enemy wrongdoing. From the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death, from the ocean of samsara, may I free all beings. The courageous Manjushri, who knows everything as it is, Samantabhadra, who also knows in the same way, and all the bodhisattvas that I may follow in their path, I completely dedicate all this virtue. You know, I forgot, I had one thing on my phone that was really cool. I'm just looking for my glasses. I know I have them somewhere. Are they here? Okay, thank you. I'll find them. So let me get this. I have a really cool tiny thing about Tilopa. Tilopa had 6 words of advice to Naropa. Don't recall, which means don't dwell in the past, don't dwell in the future, don't think, in the present. Don't examine or try to figure anything out. Don't control. Don't try to make anything happen. And the last is relax in your nature. Makes no sense, right? But let's try it again. So don't dwell in the past. Don't dwell in the future. Don't think in the present. Don't examine anything. Don't control. Rest right now in this very instant. I've been to many special Mahamudra teachings, and this is what they teach, these 6 lines. So it's very profound. So I thought I'd share that with you. Thank you. And the last thing I forgot to talk to about are the statues. So the statues, of course, we got to see all the incredible skill that it took to make them, but then they're still just a statue. And we do not worship these statues. We revere them. They are examples of those historical figures. But when the statues are consecrated, there's actually the breath of that teacher is there. So when the teachers came here and they did the incredible ceremonies and they filled the statues, and so many of us for over a year rolled mantras for the body, at the heart, for the speech, at the throat, and for the mind. Sorry, body, speech, and mind goes the other way for Tibetans. But they would put these mantras inside the statue at different parts relating to the body, speech, and mind. And then they would put, at the base is filled with many, many, many other mantras. And the crown has very special mantras. And then they do a special consecration ceremony. And many of you weren't here. We could not feed them any onion or garlic or egg during that week. It's very strict when we were doing this practice. And then they went around and all the statues' faces were covered. So if you ever buy a statue, do not put your hand on the face because it's gold leaf and it's hand painted, the eyes, so they'll smudge. So, and then I remember in the ceremony, I got a picture of them taking off the cloth coming off the face. And then suddenly we could see the statues. So it's called opening the eye of the statue. So these are consecrated statues now. So I just thought I'd share that. So thank you. So have a great day.
Can I make a quick announcement?
Yes.
Hi, everyone. Just a quick reminder that our greeter gathering is happening today after the Dharma talk at 12:30 in the community room. So if you've ever wondered what it's like to be a greeter, this is a great chance to come and check it out. No commitment needed. You'll get to meet the team, enjoy some pizza, and learn what's involved. Being a greeter is a wonderful way to get more involved and connect with the Sangha, especially if you're newer to the center. Love to see you there. Thanks.